G'day there guys, my name's Marky, and welcome back to some more stories from Reddit. Hope you enjoy. My daughter just contacted me after 17 years, asking if I want to meet my granddaughter. Am I the asshole here for telling her that I don't care about her or her daughter, and to never contact me again? I'm not sure if I'm an asshole. I'm gonna provide some background details. I'm in my 60s now. I was married to my ex-wife, and we had a daughter. Our marriage was going through its ups and downs, but I was really close with our daughter. But as our marriage was going through its difficulties, I made a huge mistake that I still regret to this day. I started having an affair with my coworker. She was in a violent, physically abusive relationship at home. We became friends at work, and things just escalated from there. She got an out from me. She got the support that she needed to file for divorce from her husband, who is currently in jail now. The affair went nowhere, and we called it off shortly after, but I was glad that she got off her abusive relationship and that she was safe. But when my ex-wife found out about the affair, things expectedly didn't go well. She lashed out and said a lot of horrible things about me to our daughter, who was 15 at the time. I admitted full fault with the affair, but even after the divorce, I sensed that the distance between me and my daughter was growing. Until one day, my daughter said that she wasn't going to speak with me anymore, and that she was going to cut me off from her life forever. That was the most painful thing anyone had ever said to me. I begged her to please reconsider. I still remember that day. But time passed on. My daughter kept her word, and after trying to connect with her for the first year, I gave up. I found out from one of my mutual friends that my ex-wife married a great guy. I was happy because I was hoping that would remove the hatred from my ex-wife, and my ex-wife would advise our daughter to at least rekindle a relationship with me. But that never happened. I moved states a year later. I am at peace now, but I still have some aching sadness. I have retired. Both of my parents have passed away, my brother passed away tragically a couple of years ago, and to be honest, I'm just waiting for my turn. I have only my dog and my sister left. A couple of hours ago, my daughter called me on the phone, and I haven't spoken to her in 17 years. I instantly recognized her voice, but I didn't feel anything. No happiness, no sadness, just indifference. She was crying a lot on the call, and we caught up on life. She's married and she has a daughter who is now 12. She apologized for cutting off contact, and she says her mum asked me to reconnect with her, as her mum felt guilty about how everything played out. She said she really wanted me to meet her daughter, and her daughter was constantly asking about granddaddy. But I wasn't feeling anything. After we caught up on everything in our life, I told her that I don't care about her or her daughter and to never contact me again. I then hung up. Was I the asshole? In the comments, CloudPretty9557 says, I just love how the dog comes before the mention of a sister. I've got a dog that's more like a sister, and a sister that's more like a dog. Thank you, Mad Dog 94, that's good to know. You're the asshole. I hate when adults make very bad adult decisions that affect their children, and then blame the children when they respond in a very childlike manner. Your daughter was a teenager. That is a rough time for kids, even when their home life is stable. You gave her 1 whole year before you cut bait and gave up on her, and then you moved away. You told your daughter that she wasn't important enough to fight for, and she believed you. Now that she is an adult with a child of her own, she has reached out to you, and you again told her that she wasn't important to you. She now knows that she was probably right to cut you out the first time. It sounds like he's been waiting 17 years to hurt her back, and he finally got his wish. Congrats on his small, pathetic victory. He's totally you're the asshole. I can't imagine why he has nobody in his life except his dog. Ooh yeah, nobody likes me, everyone I love is dead, all I have is my dog, woe is me. Immediate asshole points. Why are you trying to make me feel bad about you choosing to wallow in your own misery for years? Ain't nothing like a deadbeat narcissist claiming to be the one victim in a situation that he created for himself. I was helping my coworker get out of an abusive marriage. I helped a coworker get out of an abusive marriage and didn't even have to sleep with her. Shocking. Man, they're cooking you pretty hard in these comments, OP. I I don't know how you're gonna respond to that one, but hey, the update, I hope it's pretty saucy. I think you're at the age where you can start really reflecting on how you're going to feel on your deathbed, and I feel as though personally you made a mistake here. She finally reached out to you after, yes, you made her feel as though she's not important, like you decided to move away. I feel like a lot of people would continue to fight for their child, especially like maybe wait until they're 18, 20, 21. Things change a lot around those times. She was literally still a child with childish thoughts who was being influenced by her mother, and rightfully so because you cheated and broke the family dynamic. Like, you definitely deserved that, but she didn't deserve you giving up on her. What was an earth-shattering experience didn't have to be the be-all end-all for your relationship with your daughter. But you willingly chose to end things and move away and show her that you don't care. So yeah, I think you're the asshole for that. And now, onto the update. Look, I was extremely drunk last night. The words which came out of my mouth weren't the best, and my comments on my post weren't great either. Seeing how everyone said that I was the asshole, I decided to call my daughter again an hour ago. I didn't really expect her to pick up the call, but she picked up immediately. I apologized for last night, and she said that there was no need to apologize. I then sent her a link to this Reddit post on messages and told her I know that I was the asshole and thousands said so. She again said that I wasn't the asshole, and she started crying again. I told her that she's free to come to my house anytime in the next 4 months, because after that, I will be leaving the country with my sister and our dog. Our parents left us a nice farmhouse in their home country, and we will be spending the rest of our lives there. I sent her my address on messages, and my daughter said she'd come with her husband and her daughter by the end of the week. She asked if she was welcome to stay there for multiple days, and I told her she could stay for however long she wanted, as our house was spacious enough. In the comments, Extra Planet Janet says, I am super interested to know what exactly the affair partner's husband did to result in him still being in jail at least 18 years later. Like, that's murder amounts of time in prison, not just domestic violence. I'm not sure he's been in jail the whole time actually. OP just said that he's currently in jail. It would make sense to me if he's been in and out over the last 17 years, or if he did something more recently that got him put away for longer. The real interesting bit is, he knows about his affair partner's ex-husband's current whereabouts after more than 17 years, even after moving across states, but he didn't want to connect with his actual adult daughter after a year once the kid became an adult. It always baffles me when these posts say, and then I sent them the Reddit post I'd made. Like, I can understand using Reddit to crowdsource opinions and feedback, but actually making it a component of the first real conversation you've had with your daughter in 17 frickin' years? That strains my comprehension. I don't know. Some people find it hard to talk about feelings. They mix up the order of things. They can't say what they really feel out of fear, or they get too emotional. He wrote it all down. Maybe he wanted her to know about all this, but just couldn't say it. And see that he is serious enough about it to confess his confusion and feelings to a bunch of strangers who have no skin in the game, showing his sincerity. Honestly, fair enough. I can see why people think it's weird. I can see why they're like, ew, why would you do that? What's going on with you? But at the same time, it's him putting all his cards on the table, really appealing to people that can help him out and want to help him out. I think that does show that he cares enough to try and fix the situation and to see if it is worth fixing. Yes, it's a weird thing to link to your daughter after 17 years of ignoring her, but at least he's trying now. He may be running off again in 4 months, but at least he's trying now before that happens. I can give him that. Fair game, OP. I hope everything goes well in the future with you and your daughter, and I'm glad that you're giving it a go. Thank you for the story. Our next post is by user SmartPromotion9110, titled, I, 28 male, messed up by asking my girlfriend, 26 female, to stop talking about her late boyfriend. So her college boyfriend passed away in an accident 5 years ago. I understand that he will always be a part of her life, and she will always love him. Her grief and trauma and how she dealt with losing her boyfriend is a part of who she is as a person. We've been dating for 2 years. The problem is that she brings him into our relationship. Every time I make a mistake or get hurt, she always brings up how he used to treat her and how I should try to be more like him. She doesn't do it in an accusatory way, but it still kinda stings. It has been getting to me. Yesterday, I got news that I received the promotion that I had been vying for. I was not very hopeful about getting it. It was a position which had many candidates from all different departments. We celebrated a little. We started talking about how we could do all these things that we had planned for. In the middle of the conversation, I joked about being too anxious about these things. She responded by saying that her boyfriend had always been so calm and collected, very chill about everything. He could just shrug off anything. I am exactly the opposite. I am anxious and am a person who worries a lot. I don't know why, but it hurt me a lot. I asked her to stop talking about him. She looked offended but didn't respond, and I just ruined the night. We sat there for a few minutes before she decided to clean up and go to bed early. I feel like I'm being compared against someone who I will never match up to. I know that he is very important to her, but can't she cherish him without making me feel like shit? She's been distant today. I know she's hurt. She has barely spoken to me today. I feel as though I should have just ignored her comments and rolled with it. My message and delivery were all wrong. I feel guilty about hurting her. I should have done a better job of being sensitive about this and brought it up when she was celebrating. I want to sort this out and have a productive conversation with her so that we can deal with this issue. I need some help going about that. In the comments, Impossible Edge 1176 says, I don't think you're in the wrong here. Yes, you could have been more sensitive about it, which you acknowledge and should apologize for, but really I don't think you're in the wrong. You are being held to an impossible standard that is 100% unfair to you. You can't even celebrate your own accomplishments without her trying to make it all about him. It sucks that it came to a head like this, but use this as a chance to finally address this issue. You cannot move forward in your relationship with a dead guy hanging over the two of you. Yes, she can grieve and miss him, but that isn't what she's doing. She's using him as a tool to aid in making you feel less than someone else. Seriously, she needs counseling. It's often very hard to say things calmly or reasonably when you are hurt or angry. You don't say if you've talked to her about the issue. You really should. She hasn't moved past her late boyfriend. People only remember the good stuff when people die and never the bad stuff. You can never be his equal because he is dead. He can't screw up. It's not fair for her to compare the two of you. You need to tell her how it makes you feel. She is free to remember him in her mind, but not in yours. Like the others, it's not weird that you feel like this. Comparing your current partner to an ex like that is not okay, even if he is dead. Yeah, you could have worded that better, but that doesn't mean that you're wrong. But rather than her just stop talking about her dead partner, she probably needs counseling. But honestly, you don't have to be there for it. You deserve a partner who appreciates you and doesn't compare you to others. She might be a good person, but she hasn't been a good partner to you. I don't think she's ready for a relationship with another person. Even if this guy was alive, she should not be comparing you to him. To compare you to a dead person, who is likely not as perfect as she makes him out to be, is completely out of bounds. It sounds like part of her never dealt with her grief of losing him, and she idolizes this dead lover. I'm sure he had his faults too. A productive conversation starts with her agreeing to stop using him as a comparison. Whether you want her to be introspective about her feelings for this late boyfriend or not will be up to you. Yeah, I don't think that this relationship can proceed the way that it is going if she continues to continually beat a dead horse. Oh, you just flew to the moon? Well, my boyfriend would have flown to Mars. So it's really not that cool. Oh, you just broke a world record? Well, my ex-boyfriend would have broken the world record before you did, so really, you're not that cool. I get that it's a common thing, and it happens a lot where people just don't let go of their ex, but is it not cringe? Like, how do you not listen to yourself? Do you not record yourself or see yourself in a mirror talking about a dead lover like that and be like, my God, I am cringe for constantly bringing them up. I can't let my current partner have a breath of fresh air because I constantly compare them to my dead ex-lover. How about these people just be single until they sort their shit out and stop constantly beating their partners with something that they cannot live up to? I understand if it's something like, my dead ex wouldn't beat me half to death every night. Yeah, that's understandable. Let's compare in that situation, but not for something like OP having a personality like they do, where they're always thinking about things all the time, and you're like, well, my ex didn't think about things. He didn't have a brain. Cool, dude. Go dig him up then. I don't think you messed up, OP. I think she's being overly neurotic. And now, onto the update. So all the comments here helped me understand that we needed to talk about the issue, but she was still a bit mad at me. I thought that I should just give her space for a few days. I think a day or two after it was announced that I was being promoted, some of my colleagues hosted a little after-work dinner for me, as I would be moving divisions and not working with them anymore. It was nice, and it really touched me, and it also made me understand how effed up our relationship had become. I got what the comments meant, but I guess actually having a nice dinner celebrating my success felt great and made me truly understand how unhappy I felt. We had a talk a few days later. I told her that I felt unhappy and unappreciated, that I felt like I needed some time away from her. She almost seemed like she was waiting for this. She didn't seem particularly upset over it. She said she understood and she would move back to her parents as soon as possible. I know it's ugly, but some part of me wanted her to be upset. Some proof that she cared for me? I don't know. I feel like she didn't love me at all. I feel like I wasted years of being in love with her. She moved out 2 weeks ago, and I miss her a lot. Home feels really lonely without her, but at the same time, I feel better. Not a lot, but I feel better about myself. It's strange. She's not a bad person. She is a wonderful person, and that is why I fell in love with her, but the closer we got, the less happy our relationship made me. I know a lot of it was my fault, and I need to work on communication skills. In the comments, Hamdown1 says, I know it's hard, but you absolutely did the right thing. I remember your original post and was so frustrated at your ex's behavior. It's going to be hard and sad now, but you will be so happy soon. Take the time to breathe freely and enjoy being on your own. For real, I just read the post and was beyond annoyed with the girlfriend. Her boyfriend died and was turned into a saint with no flaws. That would be crushing, like every time you did something wrong or right to be told, well, Timmy never messed up or always did XYZ. Yeah, that's what's hard about someone who passed away in those late teen to early 20s. They always are going to be associated with being young and carefree and having the most fun of your life. My mother-in-law lost her first husband less than a year after they got married. She never got over it. They were early 20s and had no kids. She remarried my father-in-law and had my husband and his sister. She's in her 60s, and my husband still subconsciously tracks the first husband's birth and death dates on the calendar because his mum gets moody around that time of year. It was marked on every calendar they ever had growing up. Even their anniversary was marked, for a man that none of them knew or were a part of. When we got married, she offered me her wedding dress from her first wedding. I politely declined. OP dodged a huge bullet. Oh my god, she must have been that woman from the story where he's like, no, OP, you did actually say that you're gonna wear my wedding dress. And then the husband-to-be was also like, yeah, you did agree to that. Do what my mum says. I love my mum more than you. Freak behavior. I feel like these types of people never complete the grieving process, and it ends up dragging on everyone who is still alive and around them. You could not go to my mother's house without seeing a big, huge portrait of my dead sister at a makeshift memorial that she built in the foyer. Even the effing grocery baggers at the A&P knew all about my dead sister. My mother lived for 38 years after my sister died, and she never got to the point where she could move on with her life. She mourned my 12-year-old sister actively and in a way that was detrimental to her other relationships for more than 3 times the length of my sister's life. It crippled her for the rest of her life. My dad divorced her because she couldn't stop living in the past. I cut her out of my life because I was sick of being compared to a saint, and my brother is just a head case in general. I haven't been to my mother's grave, I'm not even sure where it is, but I'd be completely unsurprised if the headstone includes a memorial to the girl who died 38 years earlier. In situations like this, 2 people die instead of 1. The person who's actually dead, and then the person who refuses to live after their loved one's death. Yeah, pretty sad situation all around, but hey, for the best that you guys broke up and she can go deal with that in her own time and not continually drag you down, OP. I feel like this is what had to happen in order for healing to happen with you and for healing to happen with her. You deserve better, and I hope that you do move on swiftly from this one. Thank you for the story. Our next post is by user NoLinks3857, titled, Am I the asshole for humiliating my husband? I, 28 female, was woken up this morning because the sheets I was lying on were wet. I assumed that our child, 6 female, had had an accident, but when I checked where the wetness came from, it, to my surprise, turned out to be my husband that had wet the bed. After I had taken a shower, I woke him up and told him that he had wet the bed. At first he denied it, then I guess he realized he indeed had, as he got this mortified look on his face, jumped right out of bed, and started to try to rip the bedding off. As we have pull-on sheets, and our child was sleeping on the other side, he didn't get them off. It looked stupid, and honestly quite funny, so I chuckled. He angrily told me that it wasn't funny, so I stopped. At that point, the only thing his pulling of the sheets had accomplished was to wake up our child, who was confused and asked what was going on. He didn't say shit, just idiotically continued to try to get the sheets off. So when he didn't reply, I just told her that he had wet the bed. At that, he just froze and looked at me with this weird look on his face, almost like he was about to cry or something. Our child asked why he'd wet the bed, and as he still was completely silent, I went something along the lines of that sometimes accidents happen. He just stood there staring at me. If looks could kill, I would be dead, and I'm not exaggerating when I say he looked at me with pure hate. I've never been afraid of him, but for a second or two, I thought he might hit me. Then he just dropped the things he'd managed to get off the bed on the floor, left the room, and locked himself in the bathroom for about 45 minutes. When he came out, he got dressed in a hurry and just left saying that you can take her to school. He didn't even look at me. His behavior just really annoyed me, but I just let him be as I didn't want to argue with him when he was in such a bad mood. When I got home from work, he was still sulking and basically ignored me. I was still annoyed with him from the morning, so his behavior annoyed me even more. So I told him to get over it, that it wasn't the end of the world that he had wet the bed, and to stop taking it out on me. At that, he accused me of having humiliated him when I told our child. I found that utterly ridiculous on so many levels, so I angrily told him that he humiliated himself when he effing wet the bed, not me. He didn't take that too well and said F you and went off to his computer, and now he refuses to talk to me. And I just feel confused. I think he's the one that's behaved poorly and immature, and that I haven't done anything wrong. The last thing I said may have been harsh, but I feel like he had it coming. Yet I feel like perhaps I was mean to him? Am I the asshole? Edit. I just want to clarify that I did not tell our child to be mean or to humiliate my husband. I told her because I didn't know what else to say, and as it was quite obvious what had happened, I thought that it was just best to be honest. I didn't tell her in any humiliating way, just as a matter of a fact without doing a big thing about it. I didn't think that my husband would feel that bad about it. In the comments, Flounder Solid says, "You're the asshole." Probably wasn't the best option to tell your child that he wet the bed. You could have said you spilled some water or just distracted her with something else, but it's really not that big of a deal. That said, you could clearly tell that it's embarrassed your husband. Knowing that he was not feeling the best, you should have given him a little grace for being a little short in what he was saying and the fact that he was not acting super bubbly. Him being embarrassed and not wanting to talk is not an attack on you. It's not about you. Anger and embarrassment are both completely valid emotions. So unless he is being rude to you, you have to be okay letting people process things and not taking it personally. But then you told him to get over it and said, you humiliated yourself by wetting the bed. Total douchebag move, for real. This could have been handled so much better. OP replies, he was being rude to me. He was rude when he looked at me like he was going to hit me. He was rude when he told me, not asked, to take our child to school even though he was supposed to. He was rude when he left me to clean up after him, but I let that be as he was upset. He could have told me that he was angry, disappointed, or felt humiliated by me when I got home, but he didn't. Instead, he chose to say nothing and ignored me, which is rude behavior and it pissed me off. But yes, the last thing I said was mean, and I do regret saying that, as that is not even what I think. You're the asshole. Why didn't you pick up your daughter so that your husband could get that pee-soaked sheets off the bed? You just sat there laughing at him and then topped it off by telling your daughter that he wet the bed to humiliate him. You sound like a very mean-spirited person. I feel bad for both your husband and daughter. This is so mean on so many levels. I would have been concerned for my partner's health or if they'd had a terrifying dream or felt okay. I cannot imagine responding like you did. Awful, you're the asshole. And now, on to the update. So I reread my original post, and there are some things that I would like to elaborate on before I come to the update. I did feel empathy, and I did care about my husband. I was gentle when I told him after I'd woken him up. However, his reaction caught me off guard, and the time from when he got up from the bed until he locked himself in the bathroom couldn't have been more than a minute. After that, I felt that it was best to leave him alone. I know that I was an asshole for telling our child, but I didn't do it to be mean or to humiliate him. It was a stupid, wrongful decision, and I regret it. Further, it's not easy to show someone that you care when you're being ignored. I did text him after he left and asked if he was okay, but he left it on read. I asked him again when I got home, but he didn't answer. I asked him if we could talk about it. No answer. I asked him if he could at least tell me why he was so mad at me. No answer. I gave up and went to make dinner. After dinner, I asked if he could stop ignoring me, and I got no answer. I asked him if he wanted me to leave, which he replies, "You can stay. I don't care." So I ask him again if he will stop ignoring me if I stay, and when he says no, is when I had it. And while I don't think ignoring someone like that is okay, I know I handled it really bad, and I do feel awful for being outright mean to him. Anyway, I texted him early this morning to say that I was so sorry and asked him if he was willing to talk after work so that I could apologize. He texted me back an okay at around noon. We met up at home, and he understandably was cold to me when we met. He didn't say much. I apologized for everything, for laughing, for telling our child, for telling him to get over it, and for the part that I'm most ashamed of that I told him he humiliated himself. He was just silent the whole time, and when I was done, he just asked why I told our child. I explained, and after that, we just sat in silence for what felt like forever. Then right out of nowhere, he went something like, "I scared you, right?" And I told him that briefly he did. He said he could feel that. I asked what made him react so strongly, but he didn't know. Just said that he panicked when he realized he had wet the bed, that it got even worse when I told our child, and that he just got so effing angry with me for it. I apologized again for making him feel that way. He apologized for making me scared. I'm not going to go through all that we said after that. It was a long talk, but in conclusion, none of us are happy with how we acted, and we both have apologized for it. He wasn't that bugged about me laughing, but we both agreed that I shouldn't have told our child. However, he is no longer mad about it and doesn't think that it's that big of a deal. We both think he shouldn't have ignored me like that, and that I handled it poorly and was mean. We have both accepted each other's apologies, but I still feel bad for being so mean to him. But all in all, we are on good terms now. In the comments, Osgiliath says, "Wow, I just read your original post. You really are an asshole and seemed oblivious to it. The way you talked about it really triggered me. I've experienced people like you. I've even dated one where it seems like you can't empathize with someone who might react emotionally to things different than you. And then when someone has the audacity to give you the mental angst of considering whether you did something hurtful, you go even harder, trying to put them in their place, almost like it's some kind of defense mechanism to protect your ego. and the way that you were talking to and about your husband also sounded abusive. OP says, yes, I really effed up in this situation, and I was oblivious to it. I wouldn't say that I normally have a hard time empathizing with people, but in this case, I clearly did. I wasn't expecting him to react so strongly, and it completely caught me off guard, as I said. I've been with him for 9 years, and I usually know pretty well how he will react, what makes him upset and what doesn't, but now I just got it all wrong, and I'm not at all happy about it. As someone who remembers fights like this from my childhood, have either of you talked to your daughter? OP says, I have. We talked about it in the morning as she thought that he was behaving strange when he just left. Again when I put her to bed yesterday, and some in between. I don't know if he has. He did sleep in her room together with her last night, but when he went to bed, she was already asleep. Otherwise, I don't think they interacted that much yesterday. Not that he ignored her or was rude to her at all, but I think that she could sense that he was in a bad mood and stayed away. Tonight she's at my parents' house, as I thought that it would be good for us to talk without her, and for her not to have to deal with our shit. I feel so bad for her having to be caught up in this. As a doctor, I am utterly perplexed as to why you and your husband's biggest concern isn't why did he urinate on himself. Instead of bickering over how you both handled it, how about scheduling an appointment for a medical evaluation? If I or my husband, also a doctor, wet the bed, our first concern would be a medical problem, not humiliation or frustration. It's like being in a serious car crash, and instead of calling EMS, you were bickering over whose fault it was. Beyond comprehension. Sorry, I just feel the need to chime in. Of course a doctor's gonna roast you for that. I'm of the mind that not everyone is thinking, oh shit, I got bladder cancer, I pissed the bed. Not everyone has doctor brain. Exactly. This was the major symptom of the start of bladder cancer for my friend. Heeding its warning and getting medical attention meant he didn't even need chemo in the end. 1 surgery and regular checkups, and he's here to watch his child grow up. And now, update 2. To begin with, there were some concerns as to why my husband wet the bed. Since he was sober, I did try to get him to see a doctor, as so many of you suggested that he should. But he outright refused and claimed that it was pointless, as they wouldn't do anything anyway. He's wet the bed one other time that I know of, and both times he was rather exhausted and stressed out, so that may be the reason, I don't know. This is too long, so a heads up to anyone who just wants to read about my husband divorcing me, you can stop reading now. My second post was written just after I had apologized. Based on the initial response to my first post, I concluded that I must be an awful person, and I felt so bad for him. But to be honest, I never felt that my initial actions were that bad, and I still don't. I'm not saying I didn't deserve any of the hate that I got, I surely did, but some of it was just vile, and some of the things that I got hated for never happened, but only happened in the minds of commenters. But since the outcome of my actions was so horrible, and I never intended to hurt him, I felt truly bad that I had. So the apology was sincere, and at the time of the second post, I was happy that we were on speaking terms, and hoped that we could put this behind us. It turned out I couldn't, and shortly after, I realized I was still bothered by his behavior. I also started to receive more comments from people who saw issues with his behavior as well, which I'm grateful for, as it reassured me that it was problematic. What I omitted on purpose from my first post, as I wanted unbiased opinions, is that my husband can be a bit unstable at times. Like he can be very immature and sensitive, has issues controlling his emotions, anger, and he's so damned hard to get sometimes. It's likely due to mental health issues. So it isn't fair to him, and I'm awful for it, but sometimes I just find him so annoying and exhausting. I guess I got called out on that in my first post. At the time, he'd been in contact with the mental health team for years, but if it wasn't for them prescribing his medications, he would have just cut contact with them a long time ago. Anyway, I was already a bit tired of always having to cater to his moods, and him not doing enough to address his issues. So his weird, over-the-top and threatening reaction, in my opinion, to wetting the bed and telling me that our child just felt too much, even though he was hurt. And as I wrote, I had never felt threatened by him before. so it did bother me even though he didn't actually do anything. I made some attempts to try to talk with him again about what happened, especially why he got so angry. I felt threatened by it. I even asked him if it had something to do with him wetting the bed growing up, based on some theories about him being shamed for it in the comments. But he just said it didn't, and it was clear that he didn't want to talk about any of it, and I didn't want to push. He is so bloody hard to talk to when it comes to stuff like emotions or relationship issues, which can be very frustrating for me. To be honest, I even have some thoughts about whether I wanted to stay in this marriage, but they weren't that serious. Then, about a week before Christmas, he unexpectedly made an attempt on his life. Sadly, not the first. I did not see it coming, and I still feel like shit for it, and I probably always will. His memory of the hour or hours before is blurry, but he is adamant he didn't intend to hurt himself when he left our home that night. But I should have known. Anyway, it was bad for a while, and we didn't know if he was going to make it or what condition he would be in if he did. Thankfully, he survived, and did so basically without any long-term effects. The time after was horrible, and when he got to come home, he was so unwell, he was basically lethargic for weeks. As to why he did it, the short answer is that he apparently had a hellish amount of anxiety that he wanted to go away, which mixed bad with his sometimes complete lack of impulse control. He's been very clear that it had nothing to do with anything that I've done. I didn't know how bad he was feeling because he didn't tell me or anyone else, and it's so damn hard to help him when he doesn't tell us how he is feeling. It scared the shit out of me, and it scared the shit out of him too, to the point where he finally realized he needed more help, and he's been serious about it in a way that he's never been before. So when he was offered therapy, he accepted. Now the waiting time is a joke, so he will be starting in October. In the meantime, he's been seeing a nurse and a psychiatrist. By April, he was pretty much back to normal and went back to work. In the beginning of May, we found out that I was pregnant. It was definitely not planned and was a result of us effing up when it came to birth control. Despite all of the obvious reasons as to why we should have terminated the pregnancy, we decided to go through with it anyway. It wasn't a decision that we took lightly, but it was what we wanted. Here, I can add that he was an effing mess during my first pregnancy and the second. Apart from our 6-year-old, we have a 4-year-old as well. That was hard for him too. But for some reason that escapes me now, we thought that it would be different this time. And it was, for a while. At 12 weeks, we found out that it wasn't one baby, but 2 babies. I know it's awful, but I would lie if we said that we were happy about it initially, but by then, we were already set on having a baby, so we both wanted to go along with it. And after having digested the news, we became kind of excited about it. I'm 23 weeks pregnant now, and up until yesterday, things have been overall quite good. When he got home from work, he was in a crappy mood. I thought he'd had a bad day at work, but when I asked him about it, I was served with an angry rant of how stupid we are for having the babies, and that we should have aborted them. Like, what the hell? And when I asked him why he was saying it and pointed out that it wasn't a nice thing to say, he just replied, "Well, you asked, and it's what I feel." I didn't want to talk with him when he was like that, so I told him that we would talk about it later. When the kids were asleep, I asked him what that was all about and where it came from. He said he didn't know, in the way that he says when he doesn't want to talk about something. I tried to push a little bit, but I got nowhere. So I got a bit frustrated and told him that it wasn't fair to say things to me like that and then refuse to talk about it. He was just silent for a while, and then said, "F this," and went and locked himself in the bathroom. When he came out, he looked sad, so I asked him if he was okay, and he said he needed some air. I was like, "Okay," and added something like, "It's okay to be sad, you know." He didn't like that, so he very angrily told me that he wasn't sad. I know I should have let him be, but I just got such a bad feeling, so I asked him to stay. He didn't like that either, so he screamed at me that he didn't want to effing stay and slammed the door so hard that it woke the kids up when he left. I couldn't do much else than tend to the children, pretending everything was fine and hope that he would return safe and sound. I was so damned worried when the kids were back to sleep, I texted him to ask if he was okay, and then I cried. He replied almost instantly, "I'm okay, home in 5, sorry, love you," which eased my worry, but I was still sad and angry. He came back shortly after. He was clearly high, so he had calmed down. He isn't addicted. Oh no. When he saw that I was crying, he said he was sorry. I told him I'm not okay with him treating me like that, yada yada yada. He said he knew and apologized again. We've had that conversation before. I realized I wasn't even angry with him anymore. Perhaps I should have been. I just asked him to please not run away like that again, and he promised he wouldn't. But he probably will. Then he said he was tired, so went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I haven't been feeling that great today, to be honest. I'm scared, disappointed, and I feel effing stupid. My husband was in a better mood when he came home today, and he's been such a sweetheart. He even talked to me. He apologized for yesterday and told me he was disappointed in himself for how he behaved. That he's been trying so hard to behave like a normal person, his words, and that he was tired of failing all the effing time. I know he's trying, and he isn't failing all the time, so I told him not to be so hard on himself. I asked him about how he was feeling, and he admitted that he wasn't feeling that well, but couldn't elaborate. So I asked him how bad not that well was, and he said that it wasn't too bad, and that I didn't need to worry, and promised to tell me if it got worse. But I don't know if I can trust him on that. I'm so effing scared he will crash again. I'm not sure that I have the energy for it. Not now, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't have it either. I'm hoping so much that therapy will help him, but I'm not sure what realistically can be expected from it. What if it doesn't make a difference? What do we do then? I know it probably doesn't seem like it, as my posts have only focused on the negative, but I love my husband so much, and I don't want to live without him. But I don't want to live like this either. I don't know. Perhaps I'm just overly sensitive right now being pregnant and all. In the comments, oh God bless, you will soon have 2 newborns, 4 in total, 7 and under, and clearly a very mentally unwell husband. He's a ticking time bomb. I'm sorry, but your life and present situation is quite dire. Is there family nearby? Active relationships? Do you have a safe place that would take you and the kids in at a minute's notice? OP says, it sure does sound bad put like that, and I'm honestly having a bit of a hard time taking it in that is my life. On a positive note, we both have our parents, siblings, and friends close by. I have a decent relationship with my parents, and they know my husband struggles with his mental health. But there are things I'm not comfortable talking about with them, and his parents are great and helped out so much when it was at its worst. But it's complicated. I really don't think he would ever be a threat to me, but I'm honestly not as sure as I used to be anymore. I know he would never intentionally do anything to hurt the kids, but yes, if it were to come to that, the door to my parents' home is always open for me and the kids. This is above Reddit's pay grade. You need a support system, couples counseling, possibly different medical professionals. We are definitely willing to listen and propose support from a digital perspective. I empathize with your situation, but am not a licensed professional for answers. Ask for help from those around you if you can. This is a big burden on your relationship, and you are facing it head-on. You need to be supported, either a professional or online support. Good luck. OP says, thank you, you're right. I've been thinking that I probably need therapy too, or at least some professional to talk to, because I'm not comfortable talking freely to my friends and family about everything I want to talk about. Okay, so he really needs to get his bipolar disorder under control. That includes talk therapy, not just medication. I would do couples therapy as well. Please ask for some family support as well too. This is too much for you to manage. Please take care of yourself and the kids. If that means removing yourself permanently or until he is actively working on his mental health problems. I say this because it is not just you there. It's kids who also may have mental health struggles in their DNA, and seeing him be unstable, angry, and destructive is challenging for any kids. He needs to get better for them. OP says, thank you. I agree with almost everything you're writing. Now, I'm not saying he isn't bipolar, but he isn't diagnosed with it. He's formally diagnosed with EIPS/BPD, according to him, misdiagnosed, so it's sort of a sore subject, and ADHD. I honestly feel so bad for the kids. He is a good dad, and he would never do anything to intentionally hurt them. He's actually surprisingly patient with them, but even though he tries to behave when they're around, they are indirectly affected by his behavior. I've been trying for so long to make him realize he needs therapy as well. He has quote-unquote tried a few times, but never gotten back after the first session. He will give it a try again, starting in October, and he's promised he won't quit. And he does seem serious about it, but we'll see. In theory, I'm open to couples therapy as well, but I don't think he's ready for it. We tried it once, and he was just silent the whole session, apart from a few I don't knows. He didn't want to go back, and I honestly didn't see the point of it either. OP on her husband's frustrations. I suppose, but I sure do wish for it. It would make everything so much easier. For him too. Because when he goes on angry rants like that, he's just nasty and off-putting, to be honest. Like calling us too effing stupid, see you in the Northern Territories, doesn't really evoke my sympathy. Everything you wrote above is true, and I'm having a hard time coming to terms with my stupidity in this situation. There are mitigating factors, like us not knowing that it was twins when we decided to continue the pregnancy. But in the end, it doesn't really matter, and I decided to keep the babies when I shouldn't have. It was stupid. I want to make it super clear that my husband wanted the baby when we thought that it was just one. He still wanted them when we found out that it was two. I would not have got along with the pregnancy if it wasn't what he wanted too. So this is in no way a situation that he was forced into by me, even though it somehow feels like it now. I guess it all comes down to me thinking that I should have known better. Like, I should have known that this likely would be too hard for him, even though he didn't realize it himself at the time. Further in the comments, Evening Ad 2820 says, "Husband is secretly self-medicating. He was starting withdrawals and then went out and scored. Hence the entire 180 in his attitude." Oh my god, you're right. He was high off his ass when he wet the bed too. Everything makes sense once you just realize it's just drugs. When her husband finally cracks for the final time, hopefully he doesn't take the whole family with him. I was going to say that everything about this throws up the reddest flags for a future family annihilation. She needs to get herself and her kids out of there yesterday. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.